Wait one second. Making sure it's all good and ready. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Okay. But hopefully you are all doing okay today and staying safe, and hello and welcome back. So, in today's stream, and if you're watching on YouTube VOD, hopefully you are all doing okay today and staying safe, and we've just got to check and see if everything is working. Ah, there we go. It's all working. And finally, I tell you, finally the stream elements finally works, I tell you. It's only worked maybe 2 or 3 times all that I've been streaming, I tell you. Okay, so I'll keep that in the background and I'll pull up... Wait one second. So, in today's stream we're going to be doing some book reading. How this is going to go, well, we talk first, we read a bit of the book, and then we have a bit of talking, and then we read another book, and we have a bit of talking, and then end stream. That's how this is going to go, I tell you. But hopefully you are all doing okay today and staying safe, and welcome to the first Fireplace Talks and Stories book reading episode. Sorry, my brain just farted there, you know. Whew. You can probably smell. Okay, so I got 2 books here, I tell you. Quite short books, I tell you. And the one that we're going to be reading at the very start is going to be Jack and the Beanstalk. So any Jack and the Beanstalk fans, you know, let yourselves be known, because this is going to be very nice. Oh, I still have stream starting up. I do apologize. I do apologize for the unprofessionalness. Let me pull out... Okay. That is literally what I have a title as. You know what? We need something a bit smaller. Let's see if we can... Let's make you a bit bigger, I tell you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Join me. Join me by the fireplace, I tell you. It's very nice and cozy in here. Okay. So, we're going to be starting with Jack and the Beanstalk Favourite Tales by Ladybird. Ladybird. It is a company that made children's book. The older ones are obviously the better ones, I tell you. Their newer ones, they're not as good, they're more shorter, and kinda just do not really teach the kid much, I tell you. Like these older books, this one, let's see, what year is this one from? This one is from, let's see, where is this one from, I tell you? I just do not see it, I tell you. Right. I do not see it on here. But, there is a back of this, and you know what, I might well as read the back of this first. So, favourite tales, Ladybug favourite tales are the timeless, treasured stories and generations of children have grown up with and loved. These easy-to-read retelling, enhanced by citing richly colourful illustrations, faithfully capture all the magic of the original stories. So, remember, this is Jack and the Beanstalk by Ladybird Books. And they do have a bunch of other titles that are available, and I might as well say them out loud. I do actually have quite a few of them, as I picked them up at a store not that long ago, but a week or 2. So we got the Elves and the Shoemaker, the 3 Little Pigs, the Gingerbread Men, the Little Red Hen, the Princess and the Pea, the Fly Fox and the Little Red Hen, the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. I love that book. Love that book, I tell you. Any of you who like, what do you call it? 3 Billy Goats Gruff, you know, tell me down below, I tell you. I like 3 little Billy Goats Gruff. I always like that tale. I always hated when it changed, you know, with different books, I tell you. But you know what? The original, I don't even know the original. When did Little Billy Goat Gruff come out? Before we continue on. Little Billy Gruff. Little Billy Goat Gruffs. original. The original was written, and you would not believe this, 1841 to 1844 by, and it has, oh wait, the Three Billy Goat Gruffs, Norwegian Der Tre Buchen Brus, is a Norwegian fairy tale collected by Peter Christian Arbjorsen. I probably butchered that, I do apologise. Not very good at pronouncing Norwegian names, I tell you. And Jorgen Moe, or Mo, probably Mo. Let me turn down my secondary device, I tell you. In their Norske Fokeleventyr, first published between 1841 and 1844, it has an Arne Thompson type of 122E. Quite good. Trip trap. What does the troll say in the Billy Goat Gruffs original? Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Alright. Now, I was reading through that bit before I stopped there. Chicken Lickin', Goldilocks and the Three Bears. That was actually quite good, I tell you, that book. Now, I do want to say something. The books will not always be, you know, they won't always be short, I tell you. The ones that I have now are short books that I'm going to be reading through. And then we'll work our way up to longer books I do have in storage. 7 Pillars of Wisdom by Lawrence T.E. Lawrence? Is that how the title goes? I'm trying to remember by memory there. The Magic Porridge Pot. The Ugly Duckling. I have that book, you know, to read for you very soon. Not today, but another stream. Okay. I do apologise for any, you know, scuffness. Alright. I'm also, you know, streaming this at almost 5 AM. It's literally 3 AM. Well, not 3 AM. 3 minutes till 5 AM. Well, that's quite creepy. I heard a big, you know, loud noise outside there. Going, whee! It's not the best, you know, recreation of it. It's very loud and high pitch wind, I think. The Emperor's New Clothes. Thumbelina, the Town Mouse and the Country Mouse. Sleeping Beauty. Jit Whittington. Puss in Boots. Rumpelstiltskin. Rapunzel, Little Red Riding Hood. Pinocchio, Hansel and Gretel. Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, what we're reading now. And Beauty and the Beast, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That's actually what we have for second book, so that's a little bit of a spoiler. Shh, do not say anything about it. Tom Thumb, Little Mermaid and Wizard of Oz, and last but not least, Peter and the Wolf. Not bad, I tell you. Not bad at all. Okay, well, sit back, I tell you. Grab some water and all that. Ooh, I accidentally hit my cat keyboard there. That's under my desk. It says, in the opening page, it's like, you know, a bunch of ladybug patterns, but it says, this ladybug book belongs to no one. No one is written in there. The first page seems to be stuck. I guess they've not been opened in a long time. They must have been stacked vertically in their storage. Oh, okay. Ladybug, this Ladybug retelling by Andre Daly. Andre Daly. Ladybug books are widely available, but in case of difficulty may be ordered by post or telephone. You know, Ladybug stuff. Devon. Peyton Devon. Littlegate Road. Okay. And it should give me... You know what? Doesn't give me the date. Does not give me the date. You know, copyrighted, stuff like that. It says, Favourite Tales, Jack and the Beanstalk, illustrated by Martin Salisbury. I tell you, the pages, they feel so nice. Feel so nice. Based on traditional folktale. Well, I sure hope it is, you know. If the original is based on folk tales, I sure hope this one is. I do apologise, the pages seem to be very stuck together. Like glue. I tell you, like they're stuck together like that. Once upon a time, a boy named Jack lived with his mother. All they had in the world was one cow. One day Jack's mother said, "We have no money for food. We shall have to sell the cow." So Jack took the cow to the market. On the way he met a man. A big tall fellow he probably was, I tell you. "If you give me your cow," said the man, "I'll give you some magic beans." Beans. "That are better than money." You know what, I probably would have sold it to the king if that was the case. Why sell it to just a cow? Or just sell it for a cow? I guess he must have been hungry for some beef. Jack thought the magic beans sounded wonderful, so he gave the man the cow. Then he ran home as fast as he could. "How much money did you get for the cow?" asked his mother. "I got something much better than money," said Jack, showing her the magic beans. "These beans are no good to us," cried his mother angrily. "Arr! This is no good." That's probably what it sounded like. And she threw them out the window. Well, she proceeded to throw them out the window. Like she has this, like, 1940s, kind of facial structure, I tell you. Like, "Haw!" with her mouth, like, fully open, like, "Haw!" like, chucking out as fast as possible. So the way that her hand is going, she's pushing it outwards, like she's pushing, like, one of the window shutters, I tell you, outwards. It's like that, so the beans aren't really gonna go too far, and I'm pretty sure it's just gonna go right through their house. Wasn't it in the original Jack the Beanstalk that yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. In the original Jack the Beanstalk, his mother dies due to the beanstalk falling on the house. Pretty sure it was something like that, I tell you. It was something like that. You know what, the thing that I did not like about, the books, I tell you, the Ladybird books, were that they were short when I was in school. Like, I liked the story, but, I wish they were a little bit longer. When Jack woke up the next day, his room seemed darker than usual. He went to the window and saw a huge beanstalk had grown up in the garden overnight, stretching, as far as a cloud, it seems. "I must find out what's at the top," he said. Or he cried. But said, the same thing. Rushing outside, and he began to climb the beanstalk. His arms felt tired, but he kept going. Up and up he climbed. At least he found himself in a bare, rocky wilderness. At last, he found himself in a bare, rocky wilderness. I thought he was getting away from the rocky wilderness there. Do apologise. There were no plants or animals to be seen, but a long road led into the distance, and Jack began to walk along to it. Towards the evening, he came to the castle and knocked loudly on his door. "Could you give me some food and bed for tonight, please?" Jack asked the woman, who answered, "Oh no," said the woman. "My husband is a fierce giant who hates strangers." But Jack begged so hard that she let him in and gave him some supper. Like I tell you, in the background it looks like they just came out of the Middle East, I tell you. That being the mountains of the Middle East. You know how mountainous the Middle East is. A lot of mountains there. But the weird thing is, he travelled on a long road, it says. But the long road, he would have probably collapsed, because that road goes off into the distance. I can barely, it goes beyond the horizon. You walk that. No wonder he arrived at evening, I tell you. He would have probably, oh, he would have been exhausted. No wonder he wanted some supper, I tell you, from that load. Well, that's at least, maybe 20 miles. I would say probably 20 miles. Walking 20 miles, that's a long time. That's a long time. Jack as... Well, oh, not Jack as... Jack. Jack as Jack. No, it says, just as Jack was enjoying some hot soup, he heard the giant coming. The woman quickly hid Jack in the cupboard. The giant stalked in and roared, "Fee, fi, foam, fum! I smell the blood of Englishmen." Blood of Englishman. But he alive, or be he dead, I grind his bones to make my bread. Nonsense, said his wife, there's no one here. And she gave the giant his supper. You know what's funny, I tell you? Like, I would be immune to this because, it's English blood. And I don't have it. Oh, that's hilarious, I tell you. That is hilarious. Like, all of England is just, in danger due to this one giant, I tell you. No wonder they have to, try and take out this Beanstalk, at one point. I was making sure there was no pages in between, I tell you. Let me set it down right here. This seems not a bad picture, I tell you. Now, before I read, I tell you, the picture looks like a castle wall with a window and a chicken laying. Well, it's literally just a ginormous chicken, but it's the height of Jack in this. That chicken's huge, I tell you. That thing's about maybe half or maybe even full body of Jack. Okay, back to the story, I tell you. Back to the story. When he had finished his supper, the giant bellowed, "Bring me my hen!" His wife brought a little hen and put it on the table. "Lay!" shouted the giant. Jack peeped out of his hiding place. To amazement, every time the giant shouted, the hen laid a little golden egg. When he had 12 golden eggs, the giant fell asleep. Yeah, I got tired of saying, "Lay! Lay!" Oh, this big open picture here. You know what? That does not make sense. I guess maybe the chicken was normal size, but then that just means a giant. Like, the giant has this ginormous table, I tell you. But the door, Jack's about. Let me go back a few pages. Jack is about maybe 5 feet tall, 4 feet tall. Average height for 1700s, 1800s, and this is probably based in the 1500s, 1400s. So maybe a 4 foot, 8, maybe 5 foot 1, 2, if he's lucky. So that door probably has to be at least 12 foot tall, meaning the giant is 12 foot tall, or maybe even 14 to 15 foot tall. Now, that's a large height, I tell you. That's a large height. But then, if I hold these pages here, if I go all the way to writing this. Okay, so the tallest person, Robert Waldlow, who stood at 8 feet 11.11 inches tall. He was born February 22nd, 1918. Now, Jack is about, let's say, 5 foot 2. We'll say average height, for 1940s, I tell you. Average height. That means that door, let's see. Yeah, it's probably 12 foot tall. Or maybe even taller. 14, 15 foot. Meaning the giant's actually not that tall. Like, the giant's quite, regular size. But then that chicken, on the table was about maybe the hand of the giant, I tell you. But then that doesn't make sense, because the hand of the giant would be at least like maybe 2 feet long. I'm sorry I'm putting logic behind this, but it does, create, a thought there, I tell you. Let me know your thoughts on that, I tell you. Is it interesting? Not sure. So it is quite the mystery, I tell you. Meaning, what was the height of this giant? And also, this cloud has a ginormous city on top of it. Does it mean that it runs into mountains? Because clouds, I tell you, clouds are a very weird thing, because clouds never stay up in the sky forever. They use this hot air kind of thing that comes from the air that pushes them upwards. And you can use those for quite a long time, I tell you, in real life. Okay, so the picture that we see here is just an opened, compared to the last landscape, I guess it is nighttime after all. It's like no longer Middle East, but more like a rocky medieval, mountain. There's no grass, there's no vegetation everywhere. There's like rocks everywhere, like rocks along the path and all that. I don't know why he took the path, I tell you. It really does not make sense to me. Because the giant would obviously go down the path, but with every step of him being around 15 feet tall, he's making more distance than you can run. So the best thing would be to go off the path, but then I guess he could smell you, so that, but then how long, you know what, it does not make sense either. Because this looks like a church in the background, I tell you. Yeah, it looks like a church. It's like a rectangle with a tower, a regular size, wall. That I guess the door was next to. I know I'm putting too much logic behind this, I tell you. But the thing is, that's weird. Jack arrived. Let's say this is north, south, west, and east. North is where the castle is, but he came from the east. But he's leaving from the west. As soon as all was quiet, Jack crept out of the cupboard, grabbed the little hen, and tiptoed out. That hen was about the size of that table, like a quarter, well, not even a quarter. Like, it was very huge to that hen, compared to, the giant's hand. So, really does not make sense, I tell you. Okay, back to the story. Do apologise for putting too much logic behind it, I tell you. But sometimes, I just want to point out those stuff, I tell you about it. Okay. Then he ran and ran until he was back at the top of the beanstalk. Quickly he climbed down and took the magic hen to his mother. How pleased she was! Long ago a wicked giant stole this hen from your father, she said. Now that we have her back, our worries are over. You know what? Does this mean that giants just been sitting up there above their house this entire time? That cloud's not even moving. Like, if you looked up, that cloud's not moving. It doesn't make sense, I tell you. It doesn't make sense. Like, that cloud's been circling over her for 50 years. Your father, he lost a hen up there. But I decided not to tell you about there being a giant right above that stole our hen one day that laid golden eggs. I didn't tell you anything about that. Sorry, I just like to talk about, joke around there. Okay. How pleased she was. Long ago a wicked giant stole their hen, from their father. We already read that bit. Sorry, the next page is stuck together. You can hear it. There we go. Jack lived happily with his mother for a while, but he longed for adventure, and one day he decided to climb the beanstalk again. Just as before, Jack reached the castle towards evening, and once again the giant's wife hid him when they heard the giant roar. Fee, fi, fom, fum! I smell the blood of Englishman. But he alive, or be he dead? I'll grind his bones to make my bread. And there's, Jack in some kind of gold silk, armor. Not even armor, it's more like just gold silk clothes, blue cape and what seems to be a kind of like barred hat there. You know, so what's weird, I tell you. You know what's weird? You get to see his house at the very beginning, I tell you. It's a regular farm. But then there's a church just over from him, eh? Like, did the church just go like, well, that's new. I guess I'll just get on with my business. You know, just do that. Like, you know, just a beanstalk. Everyone around, like in a 20-mile radius, like going up and seeing, holy moly, that's a beanstalk going to that cloud. I wonder what's up there, but you know what? I'm just not gonna go up there. Doesn't make sense, I tell you. Does not make sense. Okay. After supper, the giant shouted, "Fetch me my money bags." His wife brought him some sacks filled with gold coins. The giant emptied the sacks onto the table and counted the coins over and over again. At last, he put the money back in the sacks and fell asleep. Quick as flash, Jack took the money and ran all the way home. That doesn't make sense. These bags are, you know, if this giant's 15 feet tall, these bags are 4 feet tall each, or even larger. And this is gold coins you're talking about. Like, if you piled up maybe 16 of these, I tell you, I'm just giving you a rough estimate, or maybe even 7 or 8, it would be the size of Jack, I would say. I would say 17 is actually quite closer number to the size of Jack, I tell you. Quite close to the size of Jack there. Okay. His mother was delighted when she saw the money bags. "The giant stole this money from your father," she said. "You have done well to bring it back." Like, are you just sending your kid up onto these, you know, dangerous places to go steal from, you know... How are you sure? Like, you know, Jack's father had to die before he was born, so he did not hear any of these stories. Like, his mother must have not wanted to tell these stories, eh? But what? Jack is just like a thief, I tell you. And his mother's just saying, "Oh, this belonged to your father, yeah. Oh, I'm gonna buy so much stuff with this. I'm gonna buy all the wheat in town. I'm gonna buy all the wheat in town." Although Jack and his mother were now rich, Jack wanted to climb the beanstalk one last time. Everything happened just as before. This time, the giant's wife brought a beautiful golden harp. "Play!" roared the giant, and the harp began to play soft music. The music was so gentle that it sent the giant to sleep, but when Jack crept out and sneezed, the harp cried, "Master! Master!" The harp was a snitch. The giant woke up in a rage, just in time to see Jack disappearing through the door, and with the harp. "Stop, thief!" the giant roared. "That is my harp." Now Jack had to run for his life around, you know, the giant can make more, you know, I guess the giant may be slow, maybe he takes his time. He's like a grandpa, he's like, "I'm gonna get you, sonny, I'm gonna get you." You know that? Now Jack had to run for his life. The giant took huge strides and was soon hard on Jack's heel. I told you! Scrambling down the beanstalk, Jack shouted as loudly as he could, "Mother, mother, bring the axe! Yes, I shall chop through this maybe 12 inches... No, that's not 12 inches. 6 inches thick, kinda, what do you call it? Beanstalk sprouts." You know what's funny? I remember reading this exact book because I remember the exact illustration in school. Many years ago. When Jack's mother brought the axe, Jack seized it with both hands, aimed a mighty blow at the beanstalk. Whack! The beanstalk toppled to the ground, and the giant tumbled down with an earth-shaking thud. Boom! That's how the giant went. His legs twisted in the vines. Yeah, you know, he's not doing so good after that. So that was the end of the giant. He murdered a, innocent giant who was just trying to stop them from stealing his stolen stuff. But the harp, they never said any of the harp being, stolen. The harp was probably his own property. And Jack just decided to steal it. I tell you, Jack, he couldn't just go off on a cavalry adventure. He has plenty of money with that golden egg. So that was the end of the giant. Jack and his mother were both never poor again, I'll say. And they both lived happily ever after. The end. Hopefully you enjoyed that book, I tell you. Didn't realise it would take me this long to read one book. I do have 7 white dwarfs. Snow White and the White Dwarf. No. 7 dwarfs. Do apologise. But hopefully you are enjoying this so far, I tell you. Alright. Well-Loved Tales by Ladybugs. Or Ladybird. Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Hear that? That's a book creaking, I tell you. You can see this one never got read that much. The other one, opens quite well. Oh, has a beautiful illustration, I tell you. Let me describe this illustration. It's a tree with 2 goats, a violin, a white kind of greyish dove, Grandma. Oh wait, it's all the tales. Grandma, the wolf, and Red Riding Hood, a kettle, a nutcracker, I'm pretty sure, a castle, a cat, Rapunzel, a badger, 2 kids reading in the middle of the tree, a crown, a shoemaker, a bird, a butterfly, a radish, a horse-drawn carriage, rooster, a gnome, I'm pretty sure that might be a dwarf, I'm not sure, a candle-lit holder, 3 bears, a pot, a frog, a old dwarf man, like an elf, a glass slipper, a howling wolf, gingerbread man, a sleeping beauty, a cat, a fox, a man on an adventure. Kinda looks like Jack. Maybe he got rid of his old golden clothes. Kept getting mugged, I tell you. Now he's in black clothing. Gives him some, camouflage. The 3 bunnies. And the witch with the poison apple. Very interesting, I tell you. Very interesting indeed. Hey, you wanna know something? Wait. Boom! Scared you there, didn't I? Scared you there. I bet you I scared you there. Every new generation of children is enthralled by the famous stories in our well-loved tales series. Younger ones love to have the story read to them. Older children will enjoy the exciting stories in an easy-to-read text. And still no date. You know what? Wait 1 second. Ladybird, old books, 7 dwarfs. Okay, so the one that I'm reading, I tell you. They produced hundreds of titles, I tell you. Between 50p and a couple of pounds. That's, if it's in good condition. Let's see. The only date on the vintage is on the title page. It says on the title page. But I don't see it. It's on the title page. Yeah, I don't see it, I tell you. Not the actual edition you have in your hand. Wonder what happened to Ladybugs. Ladybug books continue to be published by Penguin Random House. They closed there in 1999. Very interesting. I'm not gonna read the story right away. But let's see. The one that I have is probably 90s. Volume editor. I was just trying to find the date on it. I'll just go back there. Do apologise, I tell you, do apologise. There we go. Okay. Do apologize. Oh no, I just copied the wrong thing. Copy that to paste there. The Computer from How It Works series 654 is a rare one, which was produced privately for the Ministry of Defense in 1972. Oh, that's a very old book now. I'm trying to find, you know, like these people are charging like, you know, £16, £40, you know, for these books. And they're not even in good condition. It says like 50p to, you know, a few pounds. Ah! There's the date. 1981. That is the date of the book that we're currently reading. Very old, actually. Very, very old. Alright. You know what? I can close down my secondary device that I use to read chat, as I just have it pulled up in front of me, my stream. Alright. 7 white... Well, not 7 white dwarfs. Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, I tell you. Once upon a time, on a cold winter's day, as the snow flakes were falling softly and swiftly, a queen sat sewing by her window. As she looked out, the snow scene was framed like a picture by black ebony, like a picture by the black ebony of the window frame. There we go. I could not get that to sound properly there. Could not get the words to form. Alright. So, you know what? Not too bad, I tell you. Not too bad at all. You know, the art style, I tell you. It's very hard to, what do you call it? Well, you kind of get what it kind of looks like, I tell you. It's a big frozen castle. You can see the front gate. Some people coming in with a wagon. That wagon looks a bit too new for this, actually. If this is, you know, a queen, you know, that wagon is probably the 1800s, I tell you. That's a wagon that they used along the Oregon Trail. Oregon. Trail. No, do not care about the Game Oregon Trail. Wagon. The wagon. A priory schooner. That is what that looks like. Yeah, yeah. It even has the wrinkles in it. I think that's a mistake on their part because, you know, it's not every day that you get to see a wagon, I tell you. That's probably like the closest I could think of. Looks too much like that because in, you know, the time that this is probably set, I tell you, that wagon would probably be a carriage, like a proper carriage. Unless, you know, it's a bunch of poor people coming to ask for like some food, I tell you. Then maybe it might be, you know, a weird, you know, cotton kind of sheet over it. But doesn't look too accurate, that one there. As she sewed, the queen pricked her finger, and 3 drops of blood fell upon her sewing, the red of the blood against the white of the snow. Framed by the black wood of the window frame looked so beautiful that she thought, oh, how I wish I could have a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony. So hair is black, her lips red, and her skin white as snow. Now it happened that some time afterwards the queen did have a baby daughter, whose skin was white as snow, whose cheeks were bright red, and whose hair was as black as ebony. The queen called her little girl Snow White. Can't really think of a better name, I tell you. Like, you know, Snow White. Like, literally just go outside, you know, there's Snow White there. Bam. I'm just joking around, I tell you. Unfortunately, soon after her child was born, the queen died. A year later, the king married again. The new queen was very beautiful, but much too proud of her own beauty. She could not bear to think that anyone else might be more beautiful. The queen had a magic looking glass which hung on the wall. Often she stood in front of it and, gazing at her own reflection, asked this question: Mirror, mirror, on the wall, among the ladies in this land, who is the fairest of them all? The mirror always replied, Thou, O queen, art the fairest of all. The queen was always content when she heard this reply, for she knew that the magic mirror could speak nothing but the truth. I think I swapped over the page there. Meanwhile, Snow White was grown from a baby into a lovely little girl. By the time she was 7, with her rosy cheeks and dark, dark hair against her snow white skin, she was even more beautiful than the queen. You know what? It kind of reminds me of who's that person? That woman from Wizards of Waverly Place. I can't remember her name. The one that does music now. Selena Gomez. That one. That's what she looks like when she was her younger version in Wizards of Waverly. That's what it reminds me of. Just about the cheekbones. Let's see, where were we? Thus it happened that one day, when the queen asked her mirror, 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 on the wall, among the ladies in this land, who is the fairest of them all? It replied, Among the grown-up ladies, tall thou, O queen, art the fairest of all. Yet the truth I must speak, and so I do vow, that the child, Snow White, is more lovely than thou. When the queen heard these words, she was both shocked and angry. She looked more closely at Snow White and could not fail to see her growing beauty. Each day, as she watched the girl, the queen's anger and jealousy, not confused, increased. That's what I meant to say. Increased. At length, the time came when the queen's envy of Snow White's beauty gave her no peace. By day or by night, Hatred for the child filled her heart. Then the queen called one of her huntsmen and commanded him, "Take this child away deep into the forest and kill her, for I can no longer bear the sight of her." The huntsman had no choice but to obey. Taking Snow White, taking Snow White by the hand, he led her far into the forest. When he stopped and drew out his knife to kill her, the poor child wept and begged him to spare her life. "Please do not kill me," she pleaded. "If you will spare me, I shall go further into the forest and promise never to try to return home again." When the huntsman saw the tears on such a young beautiful face, he took pity on her. "Run away then, my poor child," he said, as he put away his knife. "The wild beasts will soon devour the poor child," he thought to himself. You know, the Seven Dwarfs really got upgraded. That's a beautiful house, I tell you. How to describe this house? Imagine a prism shape. Well, just imagine your regular cottage, you know. Face forward. How to... Imagine a rectangle, but not like... No, imagine a square cottage with a roof that faced forward and backwards. Forward to back. But you could only see the slats from the sides. It's like that, but imagine there's a second house in the middle of that house that goes through the other house to create kind of like a cone hat. Kind of like a cone hat, like a tri hat. I think that's the best I can describe it for you. When Snow White ran off into the great forest by herself, she was terrified. She did not know which way to go, nor yet what would happen to her. She feared she would meet wild bears which would attack her. She ran on and on over sharp stones and round prickly bushes with long thorns. She heard the roars of wild beasts, but although some passed her as she ran, none tried to harm her. By evening her feet were sore, her clothes were torn, and her arms and legs were scratched by thorns. Just as Snow White was ready to fall down with weariness, she came to a little cottage by the side of a mountain. I tell you, the mountain in the background reminds me of like a Bob Ross mountain, but also kind of like the Chilean mountains, or what's another mountain? Like the Washington Mountain in Washington DC. Alright. She came to a cottage, there we go. By the side of a mountain, she knocked on the door, but there was no reply. She tried the door, and it opened, so she went inside to rest. Everything inside the cottage was small, neat and clean. A white cloth was spread on the table. The table was laid with 7 little plates, 7 little knives, forks and spoons, and 7 little glasses, all set out in proper order. Against the walls stood even little beds, each neatly made up and covered with a white bedspread. Snow White was both hungry and thirsty, but she did not want to take anyone's supper, so she ate a little of the food from each plate and drank a mouthful of wine from each glass. Then Snow White was so tired that she longed to sleep. You know, this is a child drinking wine. Terrible, I tell you, terrible. Well, I guess she is basically adult here. Well, actually, in the original story, she was like 14 years old. And, for 1700s, 1500s, 1400s, that was actually quite normal. That's probably where it was written, the time. Let's see. But she's probably 18 in this one, I tell you. That's why she's drinking wine. Okay. She tried... No. I went a little bit too far there. She was so tired she longed to sleep. She lay down on the first little bed, but somehow she could not make herself comfortable. She tried the other little beds, but each one seemed too long or too short, too hard or too soft. None suited her until she came to the last one, which felt just right. Soon she was fast asleep. Now the cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs who, when it became dark, returned home. They had spent all day in the mountains digging for gold. As they entered their cottage, each one lit a candle by the light of the seven candles. They could see that someone had been there since they had left this morning. The first dwarf cried, "Who has been sitting on my chair?" The second one asked, "Who has been eating from my plate?" The third one asked, "Who has been eating my bread?" The fourth one asked, "Who has been eating my vegetables?" The fifth one asked, "Who has been using my knife?" The sixth one asked, "Who has been using my fork?" The seventh one asked, who has been drinking out of my glass?" And then they have them all going around the candles, and then in the last bed it's just Snow White just lying there. She's like maybe under 5 foot tall there. Next, the dwarfs noticed that their beds were not as neat as when they had left them. The first dwarf looked at his bed and cried, "Who has been lying in my bed?" And then each of the other dwarfs in turn looked at his own bed and cried, "Who has been lying in my bed?" But when the 7th little dwarf reached his bed, he found Snow White there, fast asleep. "Look who's in my bed!" he called to the others, and they all came running to see. They lifted their candlesticks high as they stood around the bed, gazing at Snow White. "What a beautiful child!" they exclaimed. As the dwarfs were anxious, I guess she is still a child, so child drink wine. As the dwarfs were anxious not to waken the lovely child who slept so soundly, they tiptoed away and ate their suppers very quietly. Then, when bedtime came, the 7th little dwarf spent an hour in the bed of each of the other dwarfs in turn, and so the night passed. Can you hear that? I tell you, it's very nice paper. In the morning, when Snow White first awoke and saw the 7 dwarfs, she was rather frightened. The dwarfs, however, spoke kindly to her and asked her name. "My name is Snow White," she replied. "But how did you find our cottage?" they asked. Snow White told them about her stepmother, who had sent a huntsman with her into the forest to kill her, and how the huntsman had agreed to spare her life. And then I ran all day through the forest. Well, it's not really all day. You arrived in the morning, after they'd left. So it's not really all day, I tell you. Well, we'll just go with her story, okay? "I ran all day through the forest," she continued, "until I came to this little cottage. When the dwarfs heard this sad tale, they were full of pity for the little girl. The eldest one told her, 'If you will look after us, keep our house clean and tidy, cook and wash and mend for us, you can live here with us, and we shall take good care of you.'" Very nice of them, I tell you. There's no grumpy, there's no sad, there's no sneezy and all that. There's just 7 dwarfs being happy. This one's got ginger beard, this one's got a brown beard and mustache. The other one behind him's brown hair, but just chill, no beard. Well, I guess he does have a beard. It's kind of like a Amish kind of style beard, Jewish kind of beard, not growing outwards, but growing downwards. You know what I mean? This one over there seems to be quite tan, but also white at the same time. Like he has a tanned face, but everywhere around, it's like he's been wearing the mask of Batman. That's what I could say. And then this other one, a little blonde haired with a red hat, a little bit chubby chin, you know, red leggings and a, tunic, looking quite happily waving back. And then you have the old one with a, with his pick, acting like it's a walking stick. A big beard, grey hair and all that. And then you got another ginger hair with a beard and a mustache and ginger hair with a little tiny hat. And his big brown reinforced tunic there with some big boots on. Just standing with the old dwarf while talking to Snow White there. Looks like Snow White is making some nice cupcakes. She was very happy living with the dwarfs. Every morning they went off to the mountain. Oh wait, I think I missed the entire page there. I do apologise. You are kind, replied Snow White. I shall be glad to do it. Do that. Not do it. That's a bit too forceful in the sound. And do that. However, before they left the house, the dwarfs gave Snow White a warning. We are out all day, working, they said, and you will be alone in the house. If your stepmother learns that you are here, she may come and try to do you harm. So be sure to not to let no one into the house while we are away. Snow White promised to heed their warning. She was very happy living with the dwarfs. Every morning they went off to the mountains to dig for gold. Every evening when they returned home, they had supper ready for them, and the house was neat and clean. Although Snow White was alone all day, she did not feel lonely, for she had many things to do. It's like a 1950s, kind of long haircut. Like, all the hair that's in front is tucked back, but all the hair at the back is pulled forward. If you know what I mean. Meanwhile, the Queen, believing Snow White to be dead, was quite happy in the thought that she herself was the most beautiful lady in the land. It was some time before she bothered to ask the magic mirror the usual question. When she did stand before the mirror and said, Mirror, mirror, on the wall, among the ladies in this land, who is the fairest of them all? She could not believe her ears when she heard this reply. Thou, O Queen, art exceedingly fair, but the truth I must speak, and this I do swear. Snow White is not dead. Well, snitch, I tell you. But living still in a little house far over the hill, and thou, well, she didn't cross over the hill. She's before the hill. She's not far over the hill, she's before the hill. And thou, O Queen, art certainly fair. This child, great beauty, Zove, make her more fair. I burped there, I do apologise. Then great was the anger of the Queen. She knew that, as the mirror never lied, her huntsman must have deceived her. The Queen jealousy would not let her rest as long as she knew that anyone was more beautiful than she was. She determined to find Snow White and kill her herself. But how could she do this? She knew that she must not let Snow White recognize her. Finally, she decided to disguise herself as an old peddler woman who called at people's houses. Selling things from her basket, she dressed herself in old clothes and changed her face. No one could possibly have recognized the beautiful Queen. She's not beautiful no more, looking very ugly. She then travelled through the forest, and almost 10 seconds. It's 10 seconds before it's 1 hour now. She then travelled through the forest until she came to the dwarf's cottage by the mountain. She knocked on the door and shouted, Laces and ribbons for sale. Pretty laces and ribbons. Snow White looked out of the window, and thought to herself, what harm can this poor old woman do to me? That's how to get you. Ah, she's using this lace, and she's in this picture. Snow White is like, has her back against the wall. She's like having her hands up in the air, and this old woman's just, super tightening her corset there. Her, what do you call it? Under the bust to stomach corset. So, just your regular short corset. Not like a full, supporting one for your back and all that. Snow White opened the door, and the woman brought her basket into the cottage. Snow White chose some pretty pink laces for her stays. The old woman offered to lace up Snow White's corset properly with the new laces. Snow White suspected nothing, agreed. Then the queen laced her so tight that the child could not breathe, and she fell onto the floor as if she were dead. In the evening, when the dwarfs returned home, they were shocked to find their beloved Snow White lying on the floor. I thought it was an apple. Now, why did the original picture that they had at the start of the thing show old women with an apple? I guess there must be more to this. In the evening, when the dwarfs returned home, they were shocked to find their beloved Snow White lying on the floor as if she were dead. They lifted her up tenderly, and when they saw how tightly she was laced, they cut the new ribbon laces. Soon she began to breathe again, and gradually the colour returned to her cheeks. When the dwarfs heard about the peddler woman, when they were convinced that she must have been Snow White's wicked stepmother. We still have a few more pages to go. The dwarfs warned Snow White again, take great care, and be sure to let no one enter the house. The queen hurried back through the forest. She was filled with joy because, believing Snow White to be dead, she herself must now be the fairest of all. You know what? If you just never talked to the mirror, you would have been in a fine place. Snow White's just got to live with a bunch of, 7 dwarfs, for the rest of her life. Maybe she might go venture somewhere else, but she's not coming back to the capital, so basically you're totally fine. But I guess not. Okay, let's see. As soon as she reached home, she removed her disguise and stood before her mirror, asking, Mirror, mirror on the wall among the ladies in this land, who is the fairest of them all? You can imagine the rage into which she flew when the mirror replied, Thou, O queen, art exceedingly fair, but the truth I must speak, and this I do swear. Snow White is not dead, but still it is a snitch, this mirror, I tell you. Like, the mirror could have never said anything, about Snow White, or, saying that, I do swear that, Snow White is, the beautifulest. Though she is dead, something like that. I guess he can't, lie, but, he could not say anything about her, existence. Would be perfectly fine. Is not dead, but living still, in a little house far over the hill. She did not go over the hill. Like, it was only, It annoys me, I tell you. Annoys me. And thou, O queen, art certainly fair. This child's great beauty doth make her more fair. So once more the queen began to plan how she might kill Snow White. First she prepared a comb, which was poisoned. Next she disguised herself as quite different peddler woman, and filled her basket with new things to sell. Again she travelled through the forest until she came to the dwarfs' cottage. By the side of the mountain, she knocked on the door and shouted, Cheap wares to sell, pretty things to sell. Snow White put her head out of the window. I dare not let you come in, she said. I have promised the dwarfs to open the door to no one. Never mind, you can look, can't you? Replied the Queen, holding up the dainty comb. It was so pretty that Snow White could not resist it, and she opened the door to the peddler woman. Idiot. But I guess you did, get singing there by resistance. The old woman said, "You must not let me comb your hair you must let me comb your hair properly for you." Snow White agreed, and seated herself on a stool. The Queen then stuck the comb directly sharply into Snow White's head, so that the poison went into her blood. Immediately, she fell to the floor as if she was dead. Fortunately, it was almost evening, and soon afterwards the 7 dwarfs came home. When they found Snow White once more laying on the floor, they suspected that her stepmother had been again. They soon found the poison comb and pulled it out. Snow White quickly recovered and told them what happened. Once more the dwarfs talked seriously to her. They warned her of the wickedness of her stepmother, and begged her never to let anyone enter the house while they were out. Like, why not a couple of the dwarfs just stay behind, just chill. Like, there's even a dwarf, oh, wait, I was about to say that's even shorter than the regular dwarfs. No, they're just on their knees. Meanwhile, the Queen was hurrying through the forest and was muttering to herself, I killed her this time. On reaching home, she removed her disguise and stood before the mirror, asking, Mirror, mirror on the wall, among the ladies of the land, who is the fairest of them all? Just as before, the miller replied, Thou, Queen, art exceedingly fair, but the truth I must speak, and this I do swear. Snow White is not dead, but still living in a little house far over the hill, and thou, O Queen, art certainly fair. This child's great beauty doth make her more fair. At these words, the Queen stamped her feet and beat on the looking-glass in her rage. Snow White shall die, she vowed, even if it cost me my life. I guess that's what's gotta happen, she's gotta die. You have this entire, army, Can't you ask to borrow some of the army that's more loyal to you? And, convince them to go kill this kid? Worked well for many other, queens and kings in history. Sometimes. Meanwhile, the Queen was... Oh wait, I already read that, I do apologise. Even if it cost me life. The Queen knew that it might prove impossible to persuade Snow White to let her into the cottage for a time, so she plotted cunningly. She took a lovely apple which had one green cheek and one rosy cheek. It looked so tempting that anyone who saw it must long to eat it. Then she put poison into the red cheek of the apple, while leaving the green side free of poison. That's not how apples work, it would just soak into the other side. This time the Queen filled her basket with apples and disguised herself as a farmer's wife. For the third time she made her way to the dwarf's cottage and knocked on the door, and forbidden to open the door to anyone called Snow White through the window. I had my thumb over the little bit there. To anyone called Snow White through the window. It's all the same to me, replied the farmer's wife. I only want to get rid of these apples here. I give this one to you, she went on, holding out the poisoned apple to Snow White. I dare not take it, replied Snow White, shaking her head. The farmer's wife laughed pleasantly. Are you afraid that it's poison? She joked. Look, I'll cut it in two, and we shall eat half, she said, holding out the rosy half of the apple to Snow White, and biting into the green half herself. Snow White longed to eat the rosy half of the apple, which looked so tempting. When she saw the woman happily eating one half of the apple, she sat there could be no harm in eating the other half herself. So she took the rosy half of the apple and bit into it. No sooner had she done so than she fell down dead. That's it. Book's over. Goodbye. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. The Queen laughed a horrible laugh and cried this time, "The dwarfs won't be waking you!" Like, the face of this person's just, like, it's about, maybe, like, 5 inches, 7 inches long. But then when you see it in the other picture, at the window, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 inches. Sorry about that, I accidentally yawned, burped there. Then the Queen returned to her palace, asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, among the ladies in this land, who is the fairest of them all?" At long last it answered, "Thou, Queen, art the fairest of all." Thus the jealous Queen was finally content. When the dwarfs returned home in the evening, there lay Snow White on the floor, no longer breathing. Yet they still hoped that they might be able to revive her. They unlaced her stays, combed her hair, and washed her face, but they could not find how she died. The dwarfs were heartbroken. They stood round her and wept, saying, "Our beautiful Snow White is dead." For 3 days and 3 nights they stood round her, mourning. At the end of the 3 days, the dwarfs knew they must bury their beloved Snow White, yet they could not bear to do so, for she looked as though she were still alive. So they had a glass coffin made in order that they might still see her. They wrote on the side in letters of gold that her name was Snow White and that she was a king's daughter. The dwarfs carried the glass coffin to the top of the mountain. Now she's over the mountain. Sorry, bad joke. Carried them to the top of the mountain. Then they each took it in turn to sit always by the coffin, day and night. There Snow White lay, as if still alive, but sleeping, with her skin as white as snow, her cheeks as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. Even the birds came and wept to see her lying so still. Snow White lay in the glass coffin for many years, and still she looked as if she were still alive and only sleeping. One day it happened that a king's son found the glass coffin on top of the mountain. He could not take his eyes from the beautiful girl within it. He gazed at it and fell in love with her. "Let me have the coffin," he begged. The dwarfs, "And I will give you whatever you ask." But they only answered, "We would not part with Snow White for all the gold in the world." The prince continued to plead with them. "I cannot live without her," he said. "If you will give her to me, I shall cherish her all my life." At length the dwarfs took pity on the prince and agreed to give him the coffin. Oh, you're just getting a dead body. Almost missed the page there, do apologise. Oh, looks like she came out of the coffin there in the picture. A little bit of spoiler there. As the prince's servants were carrying the coffin down the mountain side, they stumbled on the root of a tree. The coffin was so badly jointed that the piece of apple which stuck in Snow White's throat was flung out. She opened her eyes, lifted the lid of the coffin, and sat up. "Where am I?" she cried in surprise. The prince was overjoyed to see her alive. He was just got to take a dead body home. He told her. Sorry, I was taking a breath there. He told her all that had happened and how he had fallen in love with her. "Come with me." Well, it's better than the original story, I tell you. I do want to say something before we continue. The original story, he actually, she was asleep, had babies with her, So she had children while she was asleep, you know, coma. It's kind of disgusting. And that's how the original story went, and then eventually she woke up because oh wait, that's Sleeping Beauty. I do apologise, wrong story. Oh, what was the Snow White story again? Maybe the same? I can't remember, it's been a while. It has been a while. But the other story is Sleeping Beauty had, you know, a bunch of children, and one of them went up to the finger and sucked out the, you know, bit of the metal that was poison in her. Weird story, weird story. But that's, you know, what the original stories were. They were to kind of creep, but also make adventure kind of stories for kids. But they weren't really for kids. The prince was overjoyed to see her alive. He told her all that had happened, and how he had fallen in love with her. "Come with me to my father's palace, and we shall be married," he begged Snow White, and Snow White agreed. She said goodbye to the dwarfs who had been so kind to her, and had loved her so dearly. Although they were sad to lose her, they were content to know that she was alive, and that she would be happy with the prince. You know, they could always just return. A magnificent wedding feast was arranged for Snow White and the prince, and it happened that Snow White's stepmother was among those invited to the feast. When the queen, dressed in her finest clothes, was ready for the wedding, she stood before her mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, among the ladies in this land, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "Thou, O queen, art exceedingly fair, but the truth I must speak, and so I do vow that the young bride to be is more lovely than now." These words so angered the queen that at first she felt she could not bear to go to the wedding. Sorry, it was weird spelling there. Later, she felt she must see this new young queen, of course. When she arrived at the feast, she recognized Snow White. Her rage was so great that she fell down and had to be taken home, where soon afterwards she died. So she fell down, died, that's it, story end. Like, you know, Snow White just looks at her and then, and then knocked out dead. Goodbye. That's how the story goes. But that was our two books. Talk in between them. Hopefully you did enjoy that, Terry. Can't believe how old this book is, Terry. Can't believe how old it is. But I was just checking the audio there. I think that's where we're going to end this off. So, hopefully you did enjoy this. Have a nice day, safe, hope to simple, maybe some more shooting into vitamins, very important. And bye bye, see you next time, obviously, see you, bye bye.